Hello, welcome to Quackalope. Thank you for being here. Today we are bringing you a preview, not of a board game, but of a brand new RPG system, world setting. There's some hacks around there that you can play with, but we have Down We Go coming from Plus One EXP.
Yep.
Tony, you are from a channel,
a
publishing house, a beard alchemy solution-solving conglomerate.
We do. We are multi-classed to the hilt. You know, whether it's a good idea to have the build we have as a character, I don't know, but we're having a lot of fun playing it, and that's the most important thing.
I just had a chance to sit down and actually play through a full session, a slightly hacked session of Down We Go with you. You were running the show as the DM, and then I was sitting in as a player controlling three characters in a head-to-head. We'll have that coming out soon. For now, I want to spend some time with you going through what this is, why people should be paying attention, and attesting to my own not only desire now to pick up a copy of this, but also enjoyment and excitement about how accessible this seems to get something off the shelf and actually onto the table in an RPG world. So, introduce yourself. Tell people what you all do over at Plus One EXP, and then let's talk about Down We Go.
Yeah, so like you said, my name's Tony, and I'm the Chief Alchemist at Plus One EXP, and we multi-class in tabletop game design, beard and skincare alchemy, and the Bardic College of Content Creation. And our main hope is just to help connect designers who are making absolutely amazing things with players and letting them fall in love with each other's games and play. And so that's most of what we focus on through publishing games or through the content we create over on our channel.
And those of you that are board gamers that for some reason are still here, because like 70% of them were like, I'm not even...
Maybe they saw the beard and they were like, this guy looks like he knows what he's doing.
Book in his hands. If you're a board gamer who is on my channel, you like flavor text, you like story, you were tricked into clicking on this because it looked like some grimdark type setting, with a great title, trust me, this is going to be something that you want to look into getting to the table with your group. I won't promise you your game group will love an RPG setting, but if there's going to be a way to start bridging into that narrative, kind of that free-form storytelling that you get, still with nuance, still with mechanics, still with whatever type of tactical combat, skirmish, dice rolling you want to integrate in, there's a really beautiful crossover here in the world of board gaming and RPGing. To talk about. And
a lot of what you just mentioned is exactly what Down We Go does well. So Marcus Lyndhurst, who's a designer, he's a Swedish-based designer, just on Facebook posted this one-page RPG that I was like, this looks really cool. I'm really enthralled by this. Come play it on my channel. I want to check it out.
Now into the depths, you lucky few.
And this is pretty much what that one page was. And this is all the rules a player needs to know down here at the bottom. And this is the character sheet at the top. And all you're going to do is pick a name, put 2 levels in any of these abilities. You can be very sneaky and put 2 in there, or you can be a little bit sneaky and a little bit bloodthirsty, or even a little bit sneaky and a little bit holy if you want to. And then you're going to pick an ability down below that your character can just do automatically. You don't have to worry about dice rolling the first time or two that you do it, but then as you get more tired, you might have to roll dice or take more time to do it. That's going to tell you how much health you have based on what you picked up above. You're going to get bonuses to hit or defense when you make dice roll. And you're just going to pick 10 items your character has. Any 10 items you want, the person running the game says, oh, that's okay, that makes sense.
Strong advocate for always carrying a spork.
You are. I love putting... my favorite part of RPGs is that I can just pick weird things to put in my pockets.
1 bar of soap.
1 bar of soap. And here's the reality.
The liquid kind.
Liquid kind is just as good. Blessed
More
salt.
More effective at getting in the eyes.
More effective at just squirting. Blessed salt is pretty common for me because it's easier to throw than holy water. And you can scatter it around in different ways so that if undead creatures are following you, you got more options. I'm just saying. And you can always put it in holy water to make, it'll dissolve and it'll go holy. But then, the core rules are down here. You're going to roll D20 and add whatever your bonuses are from up here, depending on the type of roll you're making. So if you're playing 5th edition and you've only ever played Dungeons & Dragons, the central roll, D20 plus a modifier, is still here.
You're going to be comfortable.
Yeah, you're going to be very comfortable. All
your fancy, very expensive gemstone dice, usable.
Yeah, and then basically you can think of the 4 rolls up here as combinations of class and stats and skills that you would see in other systems. They've all just
simplified away from the complex math and the nuance when it comes to I've got this spell that does this, that rolls 27 dice and has to do math to calculate whether or not it hits a certain type of creature.
Right.
Here it's hey, We think that's a lot to get into.
Right.
Let's take a look at how we can get people up and running quickly and efficiently.
Right. And so somebody sitting down to play for the first time, who's never played a role-playing game before, is only making really 3 or 4 decisions, right? Name what class you want to be or what roles you want to pick, the abilities underneath that, and then what's in your pockets.
For the record, when I run this in the future, pocket lint does count as a carryable item. Yeah, it's a carryable. And I will announce that to everyone. Either clean your pockets or
it takes up space. Combat's very easy. Initiative is just a D6 roll, 4, 5, 6. Your team goes first, 1, 2, 3. The other team goes. You always want to roll high in the game, and all the rolls are player facing. So as a GM, I'm almost never rolling behind the screen.
You're not hiding stuff from the guys that you're playing with. Now, along with that, you have 2 other systems in here that, for me, were some of the standout stuff. One of the 2 reasons that I'm the most excited about bringing this to the table. You have a luck system, which integrates into that player-facing type stuff, and you have a rumor system.
Yeah.
So the luck system is going to work in a way where you're going to be rolling a d6. Pretty easy to know kind of the probability on that. And there's an opportunity for the players to engage in the storytelling with you by arguing as to why they'd be more prepared than maybe you're giving them credit for. And the DM gets to fight back with them, and there's this negotiation that happens until one person says either, oh, you're right, you'd be able to do that, no problem, you've really prepared for this, or the player's kind of like, yeah, I'm going to be honest, I think 2 out of 3 is a pretty good.
Right.
You're being generous to me here.
And you might even push all the way one way or the other. No, actually, there is no way you can do this.
Yes.
Or no, actually, you're right. You don't need to roll. It just happens.
And then you have a rumor system. A rumor system is going to be another thing that bridges that line. I was talking to you about how I find RPGs intimidating to run because of the prep that's necessary to run them. And we were looking through this. We'll get to that a little bit more as we flip farther into this book. But you were talking about how once you get your characters set up and you've done a tiny bit of world building, especially some of the established setting and maybe picking what type of tribe or what type of culture you're going to be playing within, then you actually invite the players to be involved in the storytelling in a very important way, and the rumor system is a good example of that. You're going to be rolling, it's one of the only hidden rolls in the game, you're going to be rolling a simple D6 behind the screen, and you're going to be asking players what they think of something. Like, for instance, you've grown up with nightmares.
Right.
What are those, and what do they come from?
Right, and it's always going to be somewhat true, right? So there's never a false rumor because it's always what your player knows, and your player's experience is absolute. Now, is it actually true in the world?
And so you might say, I've always been terrified of animals coming to consume me in the dark of night, and I'm concerned that it is a premonition as to what will happen in the future. And I roll, if it's a 6, you are actually seeing the future. Animals are definitely coming to consume you. If it's a 1, it is just a horrible fear that you've had from growing up with a hamster that died as a young child, and you don't know how that fits into the world as a player, but you do know it's now part of your character, and I know it's part of the world that you exist in.
And you do know that when you go down into the depths, that something connected to that will come up. But it could just be a rabbit comes out running at you, and you freak out, but it just wants to cuddle. But as a GM, it lets me scare you, move you, have you react in ways, even though that rabbit's not trying to kill you.
Added into the narrative yourself, which gives so much more payoff. All right, I took a tangent there.
No, that's great.
I took the lead. Let's keep talking about what's going on here.
So the one thing that we didn't get into yesterday, there's advancement. You can level up, you can gain more health points, you can get more levels and stuff, all as you complete different dungeons. But there's an optional role we didn't talk about last night. There's actually 2 optional roles. We did use one of them, and that's that a natural 20 should be remarkable. I always recharge slots. That's what I do, but there's other things you could do.
I do like that system, though. I enjoy your one limited thing that you thought you could do now. You got another chance.
Yeah. And then the other one is if your dice ends up on the floor when you roll it, your character dies in a gruesome and embarrassing way immediately.
Oh, no.
Immediately. And it is the most fun. And I have also watched on streams players use this to harass the GM and throw them off their game. So I if you're just you know what, I'm going to have to create a new character, just throw it on the floor.
Don't you make me. Don't you make me. I love the idea, too, of someone flipping like I do every now and then a very fancy dice spin and then realizing it's going towards the edge of the table and just the panic scramble to catch that die and save your own life.
Yeah. And so I don't play with it on streams normally, but it is a great rule and I do love it. And it's something that was on the sheet from the very get-go.
It's hilarious. Whenever we do a Quackalope one-shot or something
we're going to play on a very small table.
I absolutely will integrate the rule that die off table means you're dead.
Love it. And these are the GM rules. They just go into some of the stuff we just talked about in a little bit deeper, what exploration looks like,
and you're not saying
stuff like that.
This is the GM rules.
No,
you're saying
this page.
This is the GM rules.
This is the GM rules, and then everything else is more information. How do dungeons work? But you'll notice that everything we do in Down We Go, usually the rules themselves are just a page, right? So this is everything about how to roll a dungeon. This is the process of building your own dungeon. Again,
your own.
one page and a little bit extra over on the other one. But because we have a few worked examples in here for the types of monsters you might encounter and the general strength that they might have. Then every dungeon itself. This is one of my favorite things about the system. Yeah. This is the first dungeon
this is
that we
what
ever
you were
ran.
Showing me.
Yeah. Every dungeon has 4 different ways that it can go. So you're going to roll a random
Flooded,
dice.
shrouded, infected, and glowing. And then once I have one of those 4, I now have all these descriptors to set me up.
Right. And they're going to give you the descriptors of the space itself. Key adjectives that you can continually bring back in.
If it's infected,
the type of monsters there are.
The sight, sound, and smell. Blisters on the walls, boils popping, bile. That's enough for me to play with. The dressing. Clusters of insect eggs, slime-coated furniture, walls seeping pus, braziers with smoking shrooms. Love that. What's special about this area? Risk of infection, spore clouds, and sticky slime. What type of traps would be here? Well, fungal alarms, clearly. Is there a trick? A statue with a gem. Grants invisibility. Cool, so we have some special powers people can find. Are there NPCs here? There's a sage who needs help escaping. Cool, so we've set up like someone that's trapped in here. Mooks, or odd bosses. We have funganoids, serpent folk, bile golem, demon. I don't have to come up with like who might populate this space.
There's always two very low level monsters, one medium level monster, and then one very powerful
And then
monster.
the twist here in the infected dungeon is a rival adventuring party shows up. And you don't have to run by any of these as a hard and fast thing, but it gives me the framework that I can now sit here as a DM and go, I kind of know what this story is.
And here's the cool thing. You can go back to the tomb and it be a different tomb and have players, even with the same map, have a totally different experience. There's a classic thing.
You cured it and it's now like a flooded tomb
It's flooded now. Or
one.
It's a different tomb and there's just a lot of tombs and they all look the same. Or you come in the different entrance and all of a sudden everything seems kind of mirrored. And so there's a lot of different things that go into that. But you also roll randomly to see what's in an actual room. There's usually multiple options. Nice. Sometimes they combine, but sometimes it's like, hey, there's up to 12 low-level monsters, or one very powerful monster, or you're going to encounter a trap off the bat. So I'd roll a d6, and it'd be like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, now I know what it's going to be. I just roll randomly. It takes me maybe 10 minutes to prep. And then the cool thing that you were talking about is the rumor table. So I can prep, I can look at this for about 10 minutes in advance. And then when we get to the table, when they arrive at the dungeon, I ask the players these questions. What juicy family secrets lie buried somewhere in here?
And then I answer, and it might be true. Right. I might actually know the ancestry of my family, and that is what we are discovering, the sword of great uncle Serpentine.
Right.
Or, oh man, this is just like your family talked about this tomb a lot, and yeah, they lived near it. But they know nothing about what's inside.
The matriarch's tiara, what is it? Why is the family seamstress not buried here with the other servants? One of the family's children has a particular pet who never left her side. What was it?
So cool. And they're great questions.
Right.
You talked to me about how this system here, Down We Go, one of the ways that it is innovative in this space, or at least from my perspective, does something different from any other RPG that I've seen outside of some of the very experiential zines that I have, is the aspect of setting up questions and premises that cause the players to think and answer in a collective manner. That set of rumors has just established the whole narrative for the experience we're going to have. And instead of me being a DM telling people, hey, this is what you're doing, it's now the players as a collective saying, this is what I want to do. Right. And any good GM listens to their players and responds to that desire.
Right. And it's a great way to kind of gauge what is everybody at the table looking for out of the experience here. And again, you can totally change the dungeon by changing these 4 questions. Like just by changing those 4 questions. But everyone works that way. So you've got your classic, your tomb, your tower. We partnered with some other great creators from all over the globe to make it a hex crawl. So what does overland travel look like? Again, there's going to be some things that are nailed down, but like these ones are specific things that are going to happen when you go to certain hexes. But all the rest of it is determined by rolling randomly on these tables as you come into them. So there's a lot of cool stuff in there. The other part that absolutely has to get mentioned that we didn't really get into because we went on an ocean adventure is the constantly shifting city of Infinopolis. So this is one of my favorite pieces of art in the entire book here. There is no end instead of the end is near. Infinopolis is the city that you're set around. When you leave Infinopolis and come back, the city changes. You draw a bunch of circles on a map. You label the districts. When you leave and come back, you draw it again. You relabel the districts. They might be different districts this time. There are 6 that are always there. There are 3 that constantly shift and change. And as you grow in power, you can create a holding that lets you lock down one district of the city so that it's always there, that you kind of have control over it when you get more powerful. But there's different monsters you might encounter as you wander around the city, but each of the districts does something totally different. And rather than being Luda's lore questions, they're just direct questions. You ask the player this every single time.
What seems to be the hot commodity right now? What smells are coming from the food stalls? What's with the trade caravan that just set up shop? Who is that weird-looking salesperson, and what are they selling? Another opportunity for the players to script in. Like, I would say neckties.
Right.
Clearly. And selling neckties.
And these aren't Looter's lore questions. These are just what's happening. And so, but the same thing. So when you go to a temple, what deity is worshipped here? Your players are going to help you build out the pantheon of gods in this world.
And so you need to be able to, as a GM, you need to be able to weave a story and listen carefully. And that's it. Like, that's the puzzle.
And you don't prep at all. Like, that's the thing. You come in, you think about things for maybe 5-10 minutes, sketch out some things, take some notes, think about what faction might have hired them, why are they going to this place, and then we all build the world together and make it our own.
Love the artwork here.
Simone Tometa did all the artwork. It's absolutely phenomenal. There's some amazing events in here also that could be happening in the holidays of the city. Could be an outbreak of a disease. It could be, there's one called the Gentrification Beast, which is a giant monster that will rise out of the depths and swallow a district of the city and change its adjective as it gets as it gets more costly to live there because it's now coated in the gold that was inside the guts of that monster. So some very weird gonzo stuff, but very flexible. Yesterday, before our session, I spent maybe 10 minutes hacking out a totally new class. And so the level 2 homebrew in this is not just an idea, but it's baked into, we want you to make this your own.
So Down We Go is super cool, but I also know that you all as publishers, you all as creators, do a lot of investment and research into the community that you've built out that are modding or hacking or designing around the space that you've created. I think we have a few of those examples to show off.
So these came out with the Game Found campaign, but they're available now that everything's in pre-sale also. So this is the Velvet. This is a kind of creepy, haunted, Fey-infested theater district that pops up in the city every once in a while. Is it just lost like everything else, or is it because it goes, under hill and is in the Fey realm for part of the year? Play to find out. But we've got some the Motley Crew, right, which is a faction that's here along with the Highbrow.
And these are factions that you have a few established in the core book, but you might, again, not needing to do a lot of prep, you might roll a die to determine which one, or you might just pick one that feels thematic to the story that you're telling, and suddenly you have this little narrative and more questions that you can pose to the community as to why does this, for instance, the Motley Crew, why is the Motley Crew coming after you?
Right.
And they then get to tell you what they did to piss them off.
Right. And then you also have, like I said, the events that happen. So this one is coming upon some street theater happening around you. So roll on the following tables. The GM will answer a question related to the performance or grant you a reroll due to the insight you gleaned, their choice. So the actual street theater that's happening is a morality play about a beggar, but everything sounds like a prophecy, right? That's what the thing is about. And then the players get to ask the GM for some information about what's happening in the Velvet around them. And then we've got a big spread of this weird, creepy, haunted theater called the Velvet that is at the center of this district.
And all of this is randomized tables and support ideas.
Yeah.
Like this looks intimidating to someone who maybe doesn't play within this space, but once you get your mind wrapped around what this is and you start reading through it, you're just like, oh, this is just to help me. This is just when I don't quite know the answer.
This is just prompts,
I just roll the die and I'm like, here we are. Or I just look through it quickly and I pick something and then we keep going in the story.
And Drake and Navi are absolutely phenomenal to work with. I'm going to learn how to fold a map eventually. And then Keegan, content necromancer over on our channel, Keegan EXC, did one called Beneath the Necropolis, which is basically the undead are surging out of the necropolis in the city. And so something is going on, and it turns out that there's this old place called the Hospice Hotel where people are being turned into the undead, and then the undead are being trained. And there's some really cool stuff in this, but again, not loot as lore, but the players answer a question for every level of what's going on. So a little bit more deconstructed.
They're journeying through and discovering this crypt as they go down.
And a little bit more of a traditional linear adventure module than some of the
You're
other
in a dungeon.
stuff.
You're going towards the end of the dungeon. But the question is, what do you discover in between here and now? Yeah.
And it turns out there's two sisters, the Mortis sisters, who are training up. But like the best thing is, and I'm just going to show you a little bit of art, and we'll see if we can get it good enough. You got to check out this little piece right here. Can you tell what that is?
It's a disco ball with a dancer inside.
Right, a disco ball with a skeleton inside, because skeletons have a hard time moving when they're first made, so they have to learn how to articulate better. So there is a dance studio down here that is happening where the skeletons are developing better dexterous ability and movement. And the players are going to speak into a little bit about how creepy or normal that seems.
Yeah.
So there's all these different levels, the way things split off, and you're going to say a little bit about each of these things as you go through before you face off against the Mortis sisters, which might be a conflict, but might be a negotiation at the end about how you can work together if they can kind of change the way some of the undead are behaving.
I'm very into this.
Right. And so...
I mean, I'll let you close it off, but from my side of things, you all know, if we're featuring this, if we're excited about this, if we're talking about this, I want more people that are watching the channel to have the opportunity to experience the area that I actually came into the hobby through, which is the role-playing, the storytelling, the RPG world. And yet, even myself, I find it hard and intimidating and scary to get that up and running.
Yeah.
This is one of those things, and you visiting and going through some of the stuff that I had on hand, whether it was solo or really effective two-player systems that I had, has really opened the door for me, has really brought me back to the point where I'm thinking... playing an RPG, playing through some tabletop experiences with friends is a thing that is not only possible, but something I should prioritize and do because I miss it.
I agree. I agree.
But I'm saying it's kind of like deck crafting for some of the more complicated deck crafting games. I look at all the cards and I'm intimidated because I feel like I need to know them all before I get started. And I had someone came that knew the whole system, and he's like, no. You're making 14 choices. Because all these other 37 cards go in your deck, period.
Right.
So you're making 14 choices. And then I was able to play, and I'm able to like sit down and set up and build a deck and craft it. And it's the same experience here with an RPG system, where it's like, no, set D&D to the side. That's a lot. It's a lot to take on. That's a whole thing. Mm-hmm. But let's take a look at something like Down We Go, or some of the other modules that I had, and let's talk about how you can get something to the table for a one-shot or an extended multi-season campaign that doesn't have to be as overwhelming.
And we play this on stream all the time. We've got videos on how to play. We've got design videos over there. Yeah. We've got us playing the game with other people's adventures that we just drop this into. And the best thing is I have friends who have run Down We Go over and over again. Like, as the GM, you just have to know the story.
Yeah.
Somebody at the table has to know the rules, but it can be a player.
Sure.
Because they're so simple. It's just like, when do you make a die roll? And the GM never does that. So they just have to tell the story. So literally, if you're a storyteller and not somebody who wants to concern yourself with mechanics, it's a great system to hop into. The last thing I'll say, I feel so lucky to have been the developer of this game, to be the publisher of this game. Marcus and the entire team we worked with did such a tremendous job of making something that is tremendously beautiful. We have plenty of these. This is something that we will be supporting for years to come with additional expansions through the Void.
So they invest in this. They're investing.
We are invested in this for the future and for community. And there is an open license. Anyone can create
that's awesome.
Community for this, and not like an OGL weird thing going on right now. But like, we put our core rules in Creative Commons from the get-go. There's some stuff that is like, hey, like, don't just take our art.
That's my
or
artwork.
Other stuff like that.
Yeah.
But beyond that,
design in this space.
People to design in this
space. We'll invest in this space.
Yeah. Cool. Even to the point of microgrants, or if somebody has an adventure that they want published, whether it's a pamphlet or a zine or a bigger book,
and how to get that done.
Contact us, and we'd love to talk to you about printing it out.
That's awesome. Very cool. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being here. Whatever the case, whatever you do, remember to do the important thing: support good people. We'll see you next time. Bye.